Okay, so I have started recording. So as I said, I don't have a specific agenda for the revision class. And another point is, please notice that in the last week we have revised up to Unit 2. And now I'm skipping Unit 3. Unit 3 talks about operator overloading as well as friend function and friend classes. So the reason is because it will be better if I take up Unit 4, which is there for your Unit 4 as well as Unit 5, which is there for your internal examinations. Okay, so anyway, as a part of this, wherever or whenever we need the concepts which are there in Unit 3, we will stress about those things. And another aspect in Unit 3 is the strings. Strings, one way or the other, we have already handled the arrays. Okay, so these are the reasons why I just have planned to focus on Unit 4 and project the focused questions, the important questions, and so that I can repeat the concepts and also the definitions that you need to understand along with the technical concepts and the points that you need to remember specifically when you are writing the answers for focused questions in both internal examinations as well as external examinations. Now, internal examination, which is a 45 minutes duration, uh, tentatively I have planned with the 3 parts. Okay, so part A, it will be a MCQ type, wherein you will get 6 into 1. So, meaning 6 MCQ questions with each 1 mark. And part B, it could be MCQ or it could be coding or it could be descriptive. Okay. So if it is MCQ, you have to choose, and the marks will be again 6 into 2 marks. So each question will carry 2 marks. And coming to the descriptive questions, for example, definitions you are supposed to type. Now, this is where I think I give the option to students. Okay, so students who have the accessibility to laptop or desktop, they can easily type. But I know there are students who are working with cell phones, so wherein typing is not easy. So what you do is you can write the answer with your own handwriting on a piece of white paper and then take a snap of it and then upload it. Okay. So for every snap that you are uploading, write your roll number and not the complete number, last 3 digits roll number, and write your name. I mean, brief name. For example, you have, let us say, you take my name, N. Abid Ali Khan. So you write just Abid. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah, fine. So this is what I planned in part B, which is for 2 marks. So 2 into 6. So 6 plus 2 is 12 here, and then 6 there, so 18. And then you will have 4 3 marks questions, which are all descriptive, meaning you have to write and then upload the snaps. This is what I have planned, not yet confirmed. I need to talk to Ramanjanelu sir once. And of course, like copying can be done, but the point is making sure that you don't indulge into malpractice. Okay, so and mainly focus on the time and the points which are being asked or the question which is being asked. So I hope I have given a little overview about the internal exams. Let me again repeat, this is not yet confirmed. I need to talk to Ramanjanelu sir because there is another section. And if those students are also comfortable with this, then only I'll proceed with this. Or else, if there is any change, I'll get back to you. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. please always be participate in the discussion. Always talk, and that will also encourage the instructors also to present in a good way. Okay. And another, okay, fine. So let us proceed with today's class. Now it is official timing, which is 7 minutes short of 9:40. So let me start. I think I started sharing the PPT. पर्सन इच्छे देखो हाँ पर्सन इच्छे नहीं फ्रस एक मिनट कर देता हूँ जस्ट गिव मी 1 minute hello hello can you able to hear me
Yes, sir.
yeah please give me 1 minute
Yes.
आप ही को आता है क्या ना जनिते बदे क्या है सर अफराज चार्जर कहाँ रखे हमारा लैपटॉप का हेले हेले yeah I'm sorry there was a small work so I was forced to go for 1 or 2 minutes. Fine. So let us start today's session with the revision of Unit 4 that talks about inheritance and polymorphism. Shall I proceed? Can somebody please acknowledge?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So let me put forward the focused questions which we have covered in Unit 4. So please go through the questions one by one. And if you have any doubts, or if you want me to repeat any concept which is pertaining to any question, feel free to ask me. Also any other examples or any other questions which are there in the previous year old question papers also, you are welcome to ask. So let me go ahead. Anybody has any specific doubts before I take up the questions, because these questions you can again refer later also. So in Unit 4, both in inheritance, so under inheritance, you have the static polymorphism, then runtime or ad hoc or dynamic polymorphism. So under that, we have also discussed about what is the importance of a virtual function and a pure virtual function, and subsequently the abstract base class, then the different forms of inheritance and inherited attributes that are actually inherited into the derived class, and and those attributes which cannot be inherited into the derived class. And then we discussed about different types of inheritance. Okay, so single, then you have multiple, okay, then you have multi-level, then you have hybrid, then you have hierarchical. So under hybrid inheritance, you have a specific problem called as a diamond problem. So this that is where we discussed about the problem of maintaining or reaching the accessible elements of the base class by using the intermediate other base classes causes the error, because the accessibility path will be confused by the compiler. So the solution that was proposed to overcome that diamond problem was the virtual base class. Okay, so after virtual base class, we discussed about the concept which is associated with again inheritance is function overriding. Okay, and we have compared the difference between function overriding and overloading, right? And we also have discussed about static binding and the dynamic binding in inheritance. Okay, so in dynamic binding, you take a pointer to an object. And other part in unit 4 is about the generic programming. So generic programming is the notion which is supported in C++ using the concept of templates. So under templates, we have two categories. One is called function templates and second is called a generic class template. So whether you write a function template or the class template, the syntax will be same, wherein you have to use a template class, a generic data type. And when you do that, then compiler will automatically try to attach that as a generic module to something called as a STL. So where STL stands for standard template library, and then it will allow the internal data items of your generic function. If at all you are using a generic the function templates, or the internal data items of the class, if at all you are using a class template, to be binded at runtime. Okay, and these are the points which we have discussed in this entire unit, where you have two parts. Now, among these, now in the second part of templates, quite commonly you will get a STL function template for 2 marks, class templates for 3 or 4 marks. Also notice that it is also possible to ask the class templates with the specifically by using stacks and apply the concept of generic programming for stacks and queues, which I think we have discussed in unit 5. Okay, right? So let me. So as I said, I think I started saying that I have given an overview of the entire unit 4. So in this in this understanding or in these concepts to understand, if anybody has got any problem or you want me to repeat any concept, you please tell me so that I can take up that concept to repeat. Otherwise, I'll take up question by question, and then we will start. We will start the answers, or we will again revisit the entire concepts. So, anybody has any questions or any queries, or anybody wants any topic to be repeated? I guess some of the students are attempting to join. I think there is some problem. If any of our friends are getting any problem, you are free to share the meeting link along with the password. Okay. Okay. Manoj has joined. Okay. Yeah. Can somebody please respond? You have any specific doubts? And all those students who have joined, please drop your roll numbers in the chat box. Okay. Yes. Anybody has any doubts? Anybody has any doubts? Kirti, roll number 15. Sai Sri, roll number 2. 13, Hemant. Yes, anybody has doubts? Okay, no doubts. Everything is clear. Fine. So in that case, I'll take up one by one, and let us understand the definitions and the concepts in the coming, in today's class. Now, what will you say define inheritance? How do you define inheritance? Write the syntax of creating a derived class from an existing class as a parent. Okay, so what is the definition of inheritance? Yes, anybody can define? So inheritance in object-oriented programming is defined as the strategy or the mechanism of of identifying a class wherein if the instance of that class which is an object of that class is derived in sorry, if the object of that class is defined in main, then if that object other than the member functions which are available in that class, if there exists need to access some other class inner member functions also which address the code reusability, then this can be opted by using the notion of inheritance or by defining the relationship between the already predefined class and the existing class, because the existing class instance which is an object wants to reuse a member function of other class which is already defined. So what I'm trying to tell you is you remember in something like this. So there is a class which is, let us say, class A. I hope it is visible. Okay, so there is a class which is class A. Inside class A, you have a member function. Okay, so you have a member function, let us say mf. Is it visible? Is the slide is visible? Is the slide is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. So now the point is, there is another class B. No, I'm trying to uh, take up an example and then I'll convert this example into English sentence. Okay, so in B, there is another class. Class A is another class. Class. Class B is another class. Now, what are you doing is assume that you have defined a object B1. Okay. Now, technically speaking, B1 is a direct object of class B type. Okay. So B1 can able to access all the member functions which are available under the public access specifier of class B. But if there exists a need to access this B1 to access a member function which is sitting in a class which is defined earlier, then it is possible by defining the relationship between A and B, where you define A as the parent class because you want to reuse the code of the member function which is available in class A. Okay, you want to reuse the code which is available inside class A, wherein you now use B1 dot member function 1. Now, where is this member function 1? This member function 1 is defined in class A. When is this legal? This becomes legal only if you define the relationship of B1. What is B1? Instance of B. Who is B? B is a class. Now, how can you give the permission to access MF1, which is a member function 1, only when you define B as a derived class by using colon with public inheritance. Okay, under public inheritance, saying that it is publicly derived from A. It is publicly derived from A. Okay, so therefore, let me put it in English. So, what is the definition of inheritance? Inheritance is the concept of code reusability of a member function. Code reusability of a member function whose member function is in some other class, whose member function definition is in some other class. Okay, it is the concept of code reusability of a member function which is defined in some other class by appropriately defining this class as the derived class. Okay, So let me again redefine what is the definition of inheritance. Inheritance is the mechanism of binding an object, in this example B1, binding an object B1 such that a member function which is not available in the existing class, if at all wants to be used, if at all wants to be invoked, and if that member function is available in some other class, then we can use the concept of inheritance for code reusability. So in either of the sentences I have told, it is better you write a diagram like this, A and then B, and then you define the syntax of creating a class B. So what is the syntax of creating a class B? So it is class followed by class name, class followed by class name, followed by single colon, followed by single colon, and then followed by public, and then A. Okay. Now the point is, another point is, if I don't use this public here, so what is the default type of inheritance? If I don't use the access specifier in inheritance, where where I am defining the class B, then what is the default inheritance? Default type of inheritance? Yes.
Private.
Yeah, it is private. So remember that if you don't define, then it becomes a private inheritance. And private inheritance is quite commonly not used in the programming. So always public inheritance is used, because in main you want to reuse the code. Okay. So is the first question is clear? So what is the definition of inheritance? It is the mechanism of code reusability of an existing class in a newly created class, or by the objects of a newly created class. It is the mechanism of code reusability of an existing class in or by the object of a newly created class is called as inheritance. And the syntax is class, derived class name, colon, access specifier, which is the type of inheritance, followed by the parent name. And if the access specifier is not given, then the default inheritance is always private. So if you leave without access specifier, then it is private, which is normally not followed in programming. So you have to use public. Okay. Fine. So next, question number 2. Shall I proceed to 2? Anybody has any doubts in 1? Can somebody talk to me?
No doubt, sir.
Okay, fine.
No.
Fine. So second is justify the advantage of inheritance in C++ by demonstrating an example. See here, I recommend the students to remember the example. We have started this by taking a shape class with rectangle and then with the triangle. Okay, so remember that fellow, and unless and until explicitly stated in the question to mandatorily use some other classes or some other attributes, you use shape, rectangle, and a triangle and its area for all the questions which I have listed here, because any concept can be demonstrated. Okay. So justify the advantage of inheritance. What is the advantage? Just now we said, as per the definition of the inheritance, you are talking about code reusability, which is uh, uh, which is the code that is sitting in some other class you are using by defining an object of some other class. Okay. So how do you demonstrate? You take an example. I hope I can't repeat the entire program now. Okay, I'm trying to demonstrate or justify the example that we have already took for evaluating the area of rectangle object as well as triangle object. Okay, So notice that whenever you are asked to demonstrate an example, demonstrate with an example, always write a program. Please listen, always write a program. Okay, so whenever you are asked to write a program or demonstrate the concept by using an example, it is always also better, or it will be very clear if you draw within one or 2 minutes, if you draw the class hierarchical diagram. Okay, so class hierarchical diagram. So what I mean by that is, for example, justify the advantage of inheritance. This is what has been asked. So what do you mean by justification of inheritance? Code reusability. Which code? Base class code. Now what can you write in base class code? Setting the values. Setting what values? Rectangle values. What are the rectangle values? Length and width, and the triangle values. What are the triangle values? That also has length and height. So you need two arguments. So that means you have, yeah. So you take an example of, I'm just trying to draw. Okay, maybe let me. Okay, I can't move the screen. Fine. So I'm just drawing. I hope you are getting my point. Okay. Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
You draw rectangle here, and then you also draw under protected member, protected access specifier. What are the attributes that you are accessing? Okay, then you write the public member functions. So this is where you write the set values. Now don't concentrate on constructors and other things. Assume that this is for 3 marks. Okay, so you write set values. Okay, right, and then you define two derived classes. One class is rectangle and another class is triangle. Okay, so on the top of the arrows, you write that it is a public inheritance, and then you write rectangle here and then triangle here. You write a member function and say that the member function is different. The member function here is different. The member function here is different. Now this is a rectangle R, and this is a triangle T. Okay, so now in main. So before that, after drawing a simple diagram like this, now you start writing the program. Now, while you are writing the program, first make ensure that you are writing class rectangle first. No, no, not rectangle. What is this? This is shape. This is shape class, isn't it? This is not rectangle. This is shape. So you have written the shape class first, and inside the shape class, make ensure that you are writing protected. Now,
आधी क्लास हो गया आपको पूरा क्लास आए
अम्मी का हॉटस्पॉट ऑन करो
तो की ऑन करा ली
अम्मी का
ऑन करा अम्मी देखी ऑन करी
वो हेडसेट हटा देकर वो निकाल को साउंड आता ये हटा देकर सर
ईयरफोन अभी आपको हेडफोन में ले लिया
ईयरफोन में आता ना है
हेडफोन में भी आता है
क्या वो साउंड आता ना है वीडियो आता है
वीडियो आता
हाँ वैसे तो वहाँ का प्रॉब्लम हो उनका प्रॉब्लम हो उनका प्रॉब्लम हो मैं क्लास में अब एक हाफ एन आवर में आता हूँ घर बोल आई एम सॉरी अगेन माई आई एम सॉरी ओके there was a problem with my kids online classes. Are you there? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. I was saying something. Where am I? Yeah, shape class. So when you are defining the shape class, one of the common mistake that students does is writing in the flow the access specifier as a private. Don't do that. Okay, so you will be losing half mark because you cannot access the private data members in the derived classes. So make ensure that you are writing protected. Let me repeat, majority of the students does this mistake. Don't write private, write only protected. Then you take int length or int width, okay, or int height and then int width. I think we have taken int or float, whatever it is. Okay, so int length and int width. Okay, are you listening? Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. So another point is, if time is time is less, don't also expand your variables. For example, you write shape. Okay, instead of width and then instead of length, you can write W and then L. Okay, cut down the variables, right? Then what you do is, now you concentrate on what has been asked. Question number two. Question number two talks about demonstration of inheritance. So now here you use, you define a class, not shape, you define a class which is a rectangle R1, rectangle R1, and then you invoke R1 dot set values, and then just keep a arrow mark and then say that from here you are reusing the code which is available in the base class. Similarly, you do T1, and then you use T1 dot set values. Okay, so and again you keep the same arrow mark which is pointing to the same member function of your shape, which is the mutator. So and then keep a flower bracket, and then you can probably write saying that this demonstrates the code reusability of binding the derived class objects with a method or with a member function which is defined inside the base class. That's it. This is what is been asked. So if further things are asked, then accordingly you modify the same example program. Now, for an example, take question number 3. Now, this is where you have to now write constructors and destructors. And again, don't unnecessarily take a pointer to the base class. All right. Okay, so you can take a direct object R1, and you can take a direct object T1, or you can take only R1. Now you can skip T1 because what has been asked is only the constructor and destructor of derived class object. So that means one class is enough. So you can write a base class constructor, and you can write the base class constructor means class constructor. So there also, when you are writing cout statement, you write shape class constructor, probably SC. Okay, then you write rectangle class constructor, probably RC, rectangle constructor. Then when you write the derived class destructor, you write RD, rectangle destructor, and then SD, RD and SD. Okay, and then a line of expectation needs to be written. For example, you write all the program and you don't write what is the order of calling the constructor and the destructor. That means then also you will be losing the marks. So what you have to do is, upon execution of the program, for the discussed example, the order of the constructor calling or the expected output is, okay, so first you will get, if you are using R1 only, then you will get first shape class constructor, then rectangle class constructor, and finally rectangle class destructor, and then shape class destructor. Okay, so always please try to map the time along with the technicality being asked. Okay, so the concept looks very simple, but actual pain will come when you are trying to put on paper, because you need to categorically identify and tune to yourself to the technicality being asked. So this is the trick. Okay, I hope you are understanding my point, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let us go to the third one. Third is over. Now narrate the different types and forms. So here this is another question where sometimes only types can be asked, sometimes only forms can be asked, and sometimes both are asked. And the if it is for, let us say, 2 marks, if it is for 2 marks, then you write all the 6 things. Okay, so what are those things? One is you write the syntax of derived class. That means class, derived class name, colon, type of inheritance, and then base class. Now you keep an arrow mark on type of inheritance, then you say public, private, protected. Okay, so in one line you get all the three. Next, and based on number of classes dependencies, the inheritance is classified with the following different 5 types. What are they? Single and simple inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hybrid inheritance, and hierarchical inheritance. Just mention that. That is for 2 marks. Am I clear? No need to draw any class diagrams and other things. Mention those words. But writing of the form with the syntax will enable the assessor or the evaluator that you know how to derive the derived class by taking a class as a base class, and probably a line of sentence saying that the general form of inheritance, the general type of inheritance which is used is normally a simple public inheritance. Okay, so these 3 sentences, these 3 points has to be written. One is, what is the syntax of deriving deriving a derived class by taking one base class, and under the type you can write public, private, protected. You can again write public. This is the common one. Then second point is based on number of classes dependencies. Okay, inheritance is classified as 1 simple or single, second is multiple, third is multi-level, fourth is hybrid, fifth is hierarchical. Okay, are you following?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is question number 4. So question number 5. Now, before I go to question number 5, I assume that question number 4 again narrate the different types of inheritance along with syntax, and I assume that this is asked for 4 marks in part B. Okay, so then what you do is you write the 3 forms in one line only, and you mention that public inheritance is quite normally used, and then you write the 5 different types of inheritances along with the diagrams. What diagrams? Class dependency diagrams. What do you mean by that? Yeah. Okay, I hope you are getting my point. B. So this is what? This is simple inheritance, simple or single inheritance. And you write the syntax of the class B. This is important. And only write for 4 things to hybrid. Class B, colon, public A, then leave. That's it. Okay, semicolon. So this is the first type. Now second, and don't spend time on constructor calling and other things. Second is multiple. So you write A, B, C, and repeat only the syntax. Okay, so class A, assume that class A dash 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 it is there. Then class B colon public class A, class C colon public class A. That's it. Next 3. 3 is multiple. This is multiple is over. Now multi-level. Multi-level means A and then B. Here also write the syntax of defining or creating a class B and then creating a class C, and when you draw the arrows are also important. Who is inheriting what? Okay, so write the syntax of class B and then write the syntax of class C. What is the syntax? Class B colon public A, then class C colon public B. That's it. Nothing more than that. Then 4 is hybrid inheritance. This is where you have to write virtual keyword. Remember that. Okay. So in hybrid inheritance, you draw the diamond path. So you'll get 4 classes. So all this has to be drawn. You can draw this quickly. Okay. And then write the arrows. And no need to spend time on explaining the concept of virtual base class and other things. Only thing is, if this is B and if this is C, this is B, and if that is C, then what is the class of, what is the syntax of writing B? So you have to write class B colon virtual A, class C colon virtual, public virtual A, then class D colon what? Public B comma public C. That's it. And finally, you write the hierarchical inheritance. And for hierarchical inheritance, there is no need to write the syntax because it takes too much of time. Okay, so you can write different hierarchies. And when you draw the hierarchical inheritance, make ensure that you are not causing any direct diamond problem or indirect diamond problem. Okay, so make ensure that you are drawing like a tree. Can somebody confirm whether you are all following?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so don't draw like this. See here, from here to here there is a diamond problem. Okay, so don't draw like this, right? So this is about the different types and forms, and for marks based content, what has to be written also I have projected. So let me check if anybody is writing any questions. Fine, no. Okay, any doubts? Anybody has any doubts? Clear? Fourth is clear. Now fifth, what is hybrid
Yes, sir.
inheritance? Yeah. So what is hybrid inheritance? Now here I advise the students to be little smart. So assume that this is asked for the 2 marks. What is hybrid inheritance? What is the problem associated with it? And suggest the solution. Assume that this is asked for 2 marks. Then you take A, B, C, D, and then put that diamond. Then you in the diagram itself you keep the arrow. Say that this path or this path compiler is confused. There is no need to write your English essays. Are you following? It takes too much of time. So if it is for 2 marks, first of all, what is hybrid inheritance? You write the diagram, draw the diagram. That itself will depict that you know what is a hybrid inheritance. Okay, so what is the problem associated with it? So what is the problem associated with it? What will you write? So again, I am saying don't write, draw it. So maybe let me take a, okay. So what is the problem which is associated with it? So assume that you have drawn like this. You have drawn something like this, and you remember we have considered a case study also. What is that case study? We have taken student class here. Here we have taken student class. Here I think we took assignments. Assignments are CIE. Sir, no. Continuous internal exams. Sir, no. That is MIDS. Mid 1 and Mid 2. No. Under CIE, we have taken assignments, 3 assignments and 3 quizzes. 3 quizzes. And then MIDS. Okay. And then here, semester end examination and declaring the grade, SE. So this was the case study. Now, if you start writing this case study for 2 marks, which is for question number 5, it takes almost half an hour. So don't do this. Don't do this. So instead, what you do is you draw 4 classes with hybrid inheritance. Okay, mention the path, mention the paths clearly, and keep the arrows, keep the arrows, and then what you have to do is, this is one path, okay, and you have this as another path. Now this is, let us say, class D. Now this is your class A. Okay, so when you now define D, D1 semicolon, now you specify the attributes which are accessible, that are inherited to D, from A. Okay, from A, the compiler has to generate, and compiler in this case will be confused to identify the path for generating those inherited attributes. Okay, so when we define a derived class object, and if you have a hybrid inheritance, then compiler will be confused, or compiler will behave ambiguous, because compiler doesn't know which path needs to be taken in order to acquire, or in order to access the inherited attributes of class A. This is called as diamond problem. That's it. So draw the diagram, keep the paths, and then keep the arrows, and then create a object that is D1, and indicate that D1 is getting confused to access the attributes of A. Not D1. Who is getting confused? Compiler. Because you are asking the compiler to create an object D1. Okay. So I hope you are following my points. I'm actually stressing the points that you need to keep in mind to map the time-bound questions. Can somebody come in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, let me stop annotating, and then so that was about 5. Now if the same question 5 is being asked for, let us say, 4 marks, then you take up the case study. Even it is not mandatory. Even if it is for 4 marks, it is not mandatory. For example, if you have spent too much of time in other questions or other logics, and if you have very limited time to answer only this question, then I still suggest you take ABCD. This is how you can cut down the time of writing. Okay, and even by using diagrams, it is very easy for the student to explain what is the problem and what is the solution, and directly put your code. And in the code also, entire code is not necessary. You need to be strict or adhere to the syntax of virtual base classes, which are B and C. Now here there is one question here. Assume that there are classes something like this. So let me define, or probably let me give an example. Let us assume there is a class A. Let us assume there is a class B. And let us assume there is a class C. From class A, class C is getting derived from class A and class B. Now the question is, will the diamond problem exist? Yes or no? If I use, let us say, C1, where C1 is an object of class C, will I get the diamond problem? Yes or no?
Sir.
Yes or no? Roll number 48.
Sir.
Srija,
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
you will get the diamond problem. Or
Yes, sir.
get the diamond problem.
We will get the diamond problem, sir.
Yeah. So in these classes, which class has to be made as virtual base class?
Class B.
Class B, that is correct. Okay. So these are some of the points that you need to be focused. Okay. So let us proceed. Let me take an
Sir,
example. Yeah, go ahead.
in normal hybrid inheritance also,
Mm.
like, can we make only a single class as virtual?
Can we make one single class as virtual? Technically, the answer is yes, but practically, how do you use? Answer is yes.
In,
For example, if there is A and B, only I'm taking a single and simple inheritance. Whether I don't know whether I have a diamond problem or I don't have a diamond problem. So what I'll do is I'll say that when I'm creating B, I'll say that it is public. Sorry, what is it? Class B colon virtual public A. So will I get any error? I think I'm asking the same question. This is what you asked, right?
actually, no, sir.
Hmm.
Like in normal diamond problem,
Diamond problem.
B and
Okay,
C,
fine. Can you repeat?
in normal diamond problem, we declare B and C as virtual, no, sir.
Hmm.
So instead of both of them as virtual, can we declare only one as virtual?
How? Which fellow has?
Either B or C.
Uh, no. How can you do that? I mean, you are talking about a diagram which is a diamond, right?
Yes, sir.
So A, B, C, D. So if you say, let us say B as virtual and C as not virtual, no, I think you will get a error. Did you try it?
Yes, sir.
Did you got the output?
No, I got an error only.
Yeah, you'll get the error.
But one part we are making it virtual, so the compiler
No. Compiler also expects all the paths as the virtual base classes in between
Yes, sir.
as the virtual base classes. Now in the example what I have drawn here, where you have a 3-class diamond ABC, okay, so here only B is virtual. You don't have to make A as virtual because A is anyway is a unique class. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But now another question what I'm asking is, let us assume you have a simple inheritance A and B. So I don't know whether in future I may have a diamond problem. So what I'm telling is, as a precautionary measure, I want to make at the time of creating B itself as a virtual base class. So for example, I have already defined class A. Now when I'm defining class B, I'll use class B public virtual A. Is it legal? Is it legal? And as long as yes,
I think it is legal, sir.
okay, all of you please test it, okay, test it. And please notice inheritance is extremely important for EC students. I'm repeating, inheritance is extremely important. Why? Because we talk about object code reusability and reusability concept in hardware level at the transistor level, specifically for chip designs, where you talk about the reusability of the digital circuits. Okay, for example, combination of certain gates, we will be reusing it to define some complicated gate, not gate actually. So you have some things like adders, subtractors, then decoders, encoders, multiplexers. So all those things are designed by using the universal gates, which are NAND and NOR gates. So please, at the back of your head, always remember that this is the extreme important topic, because of which we cannot eliminate C++. Because for any IC manufacturing, you need efficient designer, and an efficient designer is the one who writes the hardware digital logics with the existing digital designs which are already power tested. So that's where the criticality of the coder, not in terms of actual software coding, will come into picture, but as a practical hardware implementation, which can be done only by us, and it cannot be done by any of the computer science graduates. Okay, so though they study, but their focus will be only on UI, user interfaces, and other interfacing related aspects, but actual in the design of the chips. So this is where the core principle of object reusability at the hardware level is being capitalized. So therefore, there is a language which is called as System C. So inside System C, you use the language of C++. Okay, so which you will again study in 7th semester. So please remember this. This is a very important point. I hope you are all listening. Okay, so I know some terms are making not. I mean, you are not in a position to understand, but as you move on into your profession, you will slowly understand. Okay, fine. So let me complete the other aspects. I think where are we? We are in question number 6. Virtual base class is completed. Next, 7. What is a virtual function? I think we have done a elaborate. I mean, it was our first journey of virtual classes. I mean, virtually we have started our sessions using virtual functions. So I discussed what will happen if you don't use virtual, and if you use virtual specifically when you use the dynamic polymorphism. Okay, then define ABC. So what is ABC? Abstract base class. An abstract base class is a base class which is having at least one pure virtual function. What is a pure virtual function? A pure virtual function is a one which is having at least one virtual function with zero initializer. Okay. And what is the purpose of this? The purpose of this is not to create any instances of your base classes. Instead, for syntax sake, you are keeping those virtual base classes. Okay, and you are going to write the overridden methods in the derived classes. I think question number 8 and 9, we have spent enough time, 8, 9 and 10, as well as 11. So anybody has any doubts, you can interrupt me here. Otherwise, I will go to the second part. That is about the templates. So what is the difference between function overriding and function overloading? Function overloading, you will have different number of arguments. Either it has to differ in terms of their data type, or in terms of number of arguments. But in function overriding, everything has to be same. Second, function overloading comes under compilation time polymorphism or static polymorphism, whereas function overriding comes under dynamic polymorphism. Function overloading is the concept which is not associated, it is not compulsorily associated with inheritance, whereas function overriding is mandatorily with inheritance only. Isn't it? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here can I ask one question? Is it possible to overload main? For example, you write what the int main of void, and again int main of int, and again int main of int comma int, command line arguments. Can I write? Can I overload main? Answer is yes or no.
Yes.
If yes,
Yes, sir.
how? If no, why? Can we overload main? I'm talking about overloading. Can I write a main with void? Can I write a main with int? Can I write a main with command line arguments? Yes or no? Can somebody answer? Don't try to Google. Try to answer. Yes or no? Technically,
Yes, sir.
the answer is no. You cannot overload main. Main has to be only one entry function. It is the starting part of the program that needs to be executed. Main cannot be overloaded. Main cannot be overloaded. However, main can be overridden. Main can be overridden. Okay. Is it possible to use a recursive main? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Okay, fine. Next, question number 10. Define polymorphism. This is almost every year asked question. Define polymorphism in C++. Okay, so if you get like this only for 2 marks, define polymorphism in C++, then you please follow the points which I am telling now. Define the polymorphism in C++ means first you write the default polymorphism in C++ means it is dynamic polymorphism. Okay, the dynamic polymorphism happens in inheritance. To be precise, this will happen only in public inheritance. That is point number 2. Point number 3, if we take a pointer to the base class object, okay, now point number 3 is taking a pointer to the base class object which is pointing to the address of the derived class object such that those derived class objects has same functions sitting in both the base class as well as in the derived class. Okay, those, are you following? Am I connected?
Yes, sir.
I think I lost. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. So let me again repeat. Define polymorphism. Point number 1. Polymorphism by default in C++ means it is dynamic polymorphism. Point number 2. It is associated with the public inheritance. Point number 3. The mechanism of taking a pointer to the base class and pointing to the address of the derived class object such that the derived class function is getting overridden at runtime by explicitly keeping that derived class function as a virtual is called dynamic polymorphism, or it is called polymorphism. Okay, so recall our example of get area. There you got shape get area default void. What is it? Default 1. Okay, you are taking a pointer to the shape class, that is shape star s. Then s arrow, s is equal to address of r1, where r1 is a rectangle class object. Now you want s arrow get area. Now this get area is the product. You should not get 1. So that means what are you doing? You have to override. How do you override? By keeping virtual. Why do you keep virtual? Because you have to carry forward. What has to be carry forward? Function. Whose function? get area. Where is get area in both the both the classes? Okay, so this concept is called as dynamic polymorphism. So let me again repeat. If you are asked to define polymorphism in C++, you have to write these 3 points. First, it is by default, the default polymorphism is the dynamic polymorphism. Point number 2, it comes under public inheritance. It comes under public inheritance. Point number 3, we have to take a pointer to the base class, which is pointing to the address of the derived class object such that a member function written in the base class is getting overridden in the derived class by explicitly writing it as virtual. So this notion or this method is called as dynamic polymorphism. Okay. Are you following? Now, how do how do you differentiate the static polymorphism versus dynamic polymorphism? Static polymorphism, you don't need virtual. Static polymorphism, you don't need virtual. Why? Direct objects. R1 dot get area, then T1 dot get area. R1 get area means area of your rectangle, direct. T1 get area means area of your triangle. You don't get any problem. But in dynamic polymorphism, you have to use virtual. These are many students, almost I should say around 95% of the students does mistakes. Static polymorphism, dynamic polymorphism. Notice that the question is differentiate static polymorphism versus dynamic polymorphism in inheritance. So static polymorphism means you have to take the static binding. That means dot operator. Dynamic polymorphism means you have to take dynamic binding. That means arrow operator. Okay, so you have to write the program. Okay, only one program you write, right? And you keep virtual in box. You write the rectangle R1, triangle T1, and you invoke R1 dot set values, T1 dot set values. Then you print cout R1 dot get area, cout T1 dot get area. This is an example of static inheritance. Now you rewrite only main. You rewrite only main to demonstrate dynamic polymorphism. What will you do? Now you take shape star S, then you take rectangle R1. Okay, then you use S is equal to address of R1. Then S arrow set area, set values. Okay, then S arrow get area, that is R1. Then you take T1, that is triangle T1. Then you say S is equal to address of T1. Then S arrow set values again. Then S arrow get area. So in the second main, now you keep arrows on S arrow get area when you are using it in rectangle, and S arrow get area when you are calling it in triangle, and tell that two different methods are getting executed. This is called ad hoc polymorphism or dynamic polymorphism. Okay. Can somebody please confirm?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Fine. So next is templates. Templates, you have to be careful only in the first line. That is, you have to write template class T. Don't write class template T. Okay. So the only difference between class template and function template is in function template. I think I lost the connection. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
So am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in a function template, you write only the template class T, and then directly you start writing the function template. Now please focus on the questions. you will get 2 marks questions mainly with the function templates. Okay, and 3 or 4 marks questions you will get with the class templates. So when you are using the class template, make ensure that you are doing 2 important changes. First change is write the ADT class, and when you are defining the member functions, just before the scope resolution, okay, just before the scope resolution, you have to write dynamic cast. Before or after? Before or after?
Before, sir.
Before. Okay. So you have to do the class template. So what is the advantage of template functions and template classes? Unnecessary code which needs to be repeated only for the change of the data type can be avoided. Unnecessary redundant code which needs to be repeated only for the change of the data type can be avoided. So these are the advantages. Okay, so probably what you do is, now I'll stop here. So I suggest you look in the previous year question papers. If there are any doubts, put forward in the WhatsApp group so that I can look into those questions. Or otherwise, we will take up revision of Unit 5. Okay? Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's all from my side here. So anybody has any specific doubts, please get back to me. Okay. So let me stop now, and then anybody has any doubts? Anybody has any doubts?
No
Okay,
doubt,
so
sir.
fine. So let me stop here. Please go through the previous year question papers and don't waste your time. Okay. Okay then.